I think we are live. Look at that, 3 people logged in here already. Good evening. Hope everybody's having a great night. Give me a minute here to get all set up. We'll get going. There we go. Almost there. And there we go. Okay, so as I start every live broadcast, just give you guys a description. If you've never been to a live broadcast, one of my live broadcasts anyway, I don't have a topic planned out. I just kind of let the chat dictate how the broadcast goes. And I'm pretty much here. It's just an Ask Me Anything session. So you just ask me questions, leave your comments, whatever. I try to respond to pretty much every comment. As long as you're not a jerk, you're not spamming us or whatever, because I will ban you if you are. Or not ban you, but I'll block your chats if you are. So anyway, let's get into it. We got several people in here already. Joanne and Aloha Quails is here. Chapman Reptiles, Tyler Hoagie, Penny Nichols, Eddie Shirez. Hopefully I got that right. Christian Acevedo. And let's see, Ron Strobel from Tennessee. Cristo Hernandez. I think I got it. Angel B Dog. There we go. Joe Shelburne. And Christian says, Chris, where did you get your tomato cages? I actually inherited those. My uncle, when he passed away, my aunt gave me those tomato cages. They're basically just hog wire, though. They're pretty easy to make. They're just hog wire, cut to size. And I couldn't tell you exactly how big around they are, and wrapped around, and the wire bent over to hold them together. They work pretty well, a lot better than store-bought tomato cages. So, all right, where we at here? Backyard Survivalist is here, and Dan's Boys Homestead, I think that's what it is. Hey, they're new here. First time, I guess. Came over from the Punky Roosters channel. Cheers from Canada. Well, hey, thanks for joining. We appreciate having you here. Sunset in California for Walt Lars. Yeah, it's already dark here, so. Let's see, Claudia Dezulkis. I'm not going to get that one right, but Claudia, good to see you. Francine is here, Armed American. Brittany Olson, and Home Gardening in Speaking in Russian. What does that say? I've forgotten my Russian alphabet. So is that, I don't remember. Maybe you're saying Zdravstvuyte. I don't know exactly. I can't remember the Russian alphabet well enough to pronounce that word. Hello to you, though. Adam Monroe says, hey, Chris. Walt says, waiting for the bus schedules all flocked up today due to a breakdown. Oh, no. And look at that, a $1 super chat from Aloha Quail. Thank you so much, Aloha. Appreciate that. Let's see. Angel says, recently my quail got a bad eye and died a few days later. Have any idea what could have caused it? Probably another bird, honestly. Sorry to hear that, first of all. That it happens from time to time, but if it was an eye injury, it was probably one of your other quail. They tend to get aggressive from time to time, and that's where they focus, on the other bird's eyes. So they usually it doesn't kill the bird. I mean, that happens from time to time, especially if the bird's like already sick or fairly old or any of those kinds of things. If they pick on them a lot, then yeah, definitely they can kill the other birds. But usually that's not what happens. Usually they kind of fight a little bit, work it out amongst themselves, and then eventually they establish the pecking order and calm down. It's very, very common whenever you introduce new birds to each other, or whenever the birds first go into the breeding season. So whenever they first start, the roosters start crowing, females start laying eggs, they get a little bit rowdy at that point, and then they kind of do start picking on each other a little bit. Sorry to hear you had a problem with that. Hopefully you don't have any more. Antonio says, hey, Chris, on what day do rabbits start building their nest? Usually, my rabbits anyway, most of the time, it's like the day they're going to have their babies. I mean, they don't really do much pre-building. Usually I go out there, and if I see the rabbit running around with straw sticking out both sides of its mouth, then that means they're going to have babies probably that day or the next day. I mean, it's pretty quick. And sometimes you don't even see that happen, and just all of a sudden you got babies. So, it's very soon, very close to the time they actually kindle. All right, Eddie Shirez says, hey, Chris, do you usually incubate in the winter? Well, sometimes I do. Not usually, because my birds aren't really producing that many eggs right now, and most of them are freezing whenever it's really cold out anyway. So it's not really, it doesn't really work out to do a whole lot of incubating in the winter for me. But occasionally I do. If we have a stretch of warm weather and the birds are laying pretty good, then I'll go ahead and collect eggs and maybe incubate them, but not always. So, All right, Branscombe Farm says, after your poop video issues, I have the same issues. What to do? Yeah, well, if you guys watched my video this last week I put out, yeah, I put my chores off way too long, let that stuff really build up on me. But yeah, the only thing to do is to stay on top of it. It's not that big a deal if I stay on top of it, do it every couple of weeks. It's pretty easy, but sometimes I blow it off and then it gets overwhelming, to take care of. So, hello to you, home gardening. Hey, Aloha Quail has baby rabbits. Congratulations. Okay, Martin Thompson says, talk to Kansas City Quail Farm. They're wonderful. I live north of Kansas City, so I'm going to pick up some hatching eggs. Thanks for the inspiration. This will be my first time. Well, congratulations on your new eggs. Hopefully your hatch goes really, really well. And you're right, Kansas City Quail Farm, great people, super nice, great breeding stock. I mean, you can't go wrong with them. So you picked a good company to do business with. All right, Cristo Hernandez says, can you keep chickens and quail together? You can keep chickens and quail together, but there are some diseases that chickens can carry that doesn't necessarily affect the chicken, but can affect your quail. So it's really kind of best usually to separate them a little bit, not let them on the same ground all the time with each other. You may never have problems with it. You may. It's hard to say, but yes, you can keep them together if that's what you want to do. All right, let me grab a drink here. All right, Jimmy from Salem, Missouri. Hello to you, and glad you made it. All right, Walt says, just picked up some heavy vinyl roll material for free, like 25 feet. We'll use it to shade or wind blocking. Very nice. Congratulations on that. Free is awesome. Stephen Phillips says, after a rabbit gives birth, how long do you wait until breeding them again? Well, it depends on a couple of things. I mean, if you're talking about a successful kindling where she's still got babies, I like to wait until she's about 6 to 8 weeks old, somewhere right, or the babies are 6 to 8 weeks old, I should say, because that gives her, if you do it at 6 weeks and then you're weaning your rabbits at 8 weeks, that gives her about 2 weeks without babies before she has another litter. A lot of the times I'm not in that big of a hurry to get them done, so I'll just wait a little bit longer. It just depends, but I wouldn't do it any more than, I mean, you can go 4 weeks when your babies are 4 weeks old, and then you're basically weaning them out right at 8 weeks, and she's having babies probably the same day, the next day. It's a little bit intensive for my, what I like to do. I like to give them a little bit of a break in between litters, so I usually wait till I wean their babies and then go ahead and breed them. That gives me 30 days, roughly, between the time she has babies to the time she has more babies. So that's just my thought. All right, Brittany Olson says, Chris, we're anticipating it to be -10 to -20 below tonight. We have quail in stacking rabbit cages in our chicken coop, protected from the wind but no heat. Give them a cardboard box to huddle. They should be fine. I think what I would do if it was going to be like -10 or -20, and that's probably a regular thing that you have there, is I would move because that's too cold. But it's going to be pretty cold here tonight too, but not that cold. It's going to be down in the single digits. Probably, I think the low tonight is like 8 degrees or something like that. So yeah, you don't need to really necessarily provide them with any heat. You've got a perfect setup. You've got them in an area where they're protected from the wind. They're not going to get wind blowing on them all the time. And you've given them something to kind of huddle in to get out of the wind, so they should be just fine. Hello to you, Rhonda. Good to see you here on the live broadcast. Brittany says, anything else that I should do? Okay, no, I think I already answered that one, Brittany. All right. Mountaineer, I think is how that's pronounced. Howdy from West Virginia, wearing another great shirt. Yeah, you guys like my shirt tonight? One of my favorite Reagan quotes. I don't know if you can read that or not, but what government is not the solution to a problem, government is the problem. All right, evening to you, Richard of Danbury. Have to read that one slow. Excuse me. Christian says, hey, Chris, what can I use as mulch in my garden? Lots of things. It depends really on what you have available. Wood chips are one of my favorite mulches. You don't want to, plow that into your garden. You don't want to till it into your garden, but it makes a great mulch. You have to go pretty thick though to keep the weeds at bay. Cardboard is fantastic mulch. Just lay down sheets of cardboard and then lay something. You don't need a very heavy layer on top of that. Just a thin layer of whatever to hold it down basically in place. It does a great job of suppressing weeds. It deteriorates over time and just breaks down into the soil, feeds the soil. Don't use the glossy cardboard. Just use regular cardboard. Try to get stuff without a lot of tape on it and that kind of stuff. But you can usually get that for free. So if you've got an area you've got a lot of weeds in, you need to really mulch to get rid of the weeds. Cardboard is a fantastic option. Newspaper, again, not the glossy pages, just regular newspaper. About 3 or 4 sheets thick. That does pretty good, but it's going to break down pretty quick. When I was a kid, my grandpa used straw, just straw. That's all he used every year. Pretty thick, about that thick on the garden. And it did a pretty good job too. The straw does tend to sprout. There'll be some seeds in it, and they'll sprout, but it's real easy to pull. So it's not that big of a deal. Anyway, hopefully that answered the question for you. And you can use grass clippings. You can use just about anything for mulch. It works, whatever you got. All right, Gator Green says, Chris, I got 22 newborn quails in the last 2 weeks and have 2 rabbits pregnant, and they're due at the end of the month. Thank you so much for teaching me how to eat better. Well, thank you so much for the kind comments. I'm so glad that you find my videos helpful, and congratulations on your quail and your new rabbits coming. You did a good job with them, apparently. Antonio says, my rabbits have been building a nest for like 2 or 3 days, but it hasn't had babies. Some rabbits will do that. They'll build the nest a lot earlier for whatever reason. Be patient, it's the best thing I can tell you. It could be a false pregnancy, but give her at least, depending on where she's at least 35 days from the date she was bred before you consider her not pregnant. All right. J-Dog's Place says, Punky Rooster sent me over. Well, I don't know if she's in the live broadcast tonight or not, but tell her thank you so much for sending some people my way. I appreciate that. All right. Rhonda Snare says, my eggs started to hatch so far. I only have 4 out of 16, but that's okay for my first try. And 2 hatched today. They were supposed to start on Tuesday, so I'm thinking Monday I'll call them. I bought the eggs. Yeah, probably Monday's a good day to go ahead and call it. If you haven't already, 4, like you said, it's not terrible for your first try at all. 4 out of 16, that's a little bit of a low hatch rate, of course, but it's not terrible for your first try. Most of the time, if you have a low hatch rate, it's usually going to be go back to your temperature. Make sure that your incubator is reading the right temperature. That's the biggest issue with most hatches. Unless you have the humidity just way too high. If you have it like 85, 90% humidity in there, then the birds can start drowning because there's just too much water in the air. But if it's just the again, get a good calibrated thermometer, a medical thermometer, something like that. Make sure it's calibrated. Make sure it's reading accurate before you trust it, and then check it. Put it in your incubator and check and verify that your incubator is reading the right temperature. That's usually the issue with a low hatch. All right, Chloe Haywood says, I'm trying to breed one of my rabbits. The doe has had a litter before, but my new buck just doesn't seem to be able to breed the doe. The doe is lifting when I'm trying to breed them, but he can't do it. Is he overweight maybe, Chloe? That's probably the most common thing. When you have problems with your buck not performing, it's usually that they're overweight. You may have to put him on a little bit of a diet for a little while and, see what happens. But, it's hard to say exactly. All right, Walt says, Joe Saladin keeps chickens running under rabbits' cages. YouTube vids on it for different peoples. Yeah, I've seen those kinds of things before, and there's no problem with that. If you want to do that, I don't see any reason why not. They'll keep the bug population down for sure, so it's not a bad idea. Penny says, my son Garrett got the greenhouse built over the past 2 days. Just have the door to hang, and it will be ready to rock, starting seeds this weekend. Congratulations, Penny. I don't know where you're located, but it's a little early for me to start seeds here. Just a couple of weeks, but let me grab another drink here. Winter air is so dry. It dries me out. My skin gets dry. My hands crack if I don't keep them, keep lotion on them and stuff. But anyway, another topic altogether. So anyway, what I was saying, it's a little bit early for me to start seeds here. Not that you can't do it, but if I start like tomatoes or peppers or something like that now, by the time they're going in the ground, I've had to repot them several times into great big pots, and they're big plants. That's okay. It's just, if you got the room, you got the dirt, you got all that kind of stuff to do that in, then yeah, definitely can do that. I've just had problems with, finding enough big pots like that and enough dirt to plant them up several times to where they don't get root bound and those kinds of things. But yeah, I always wait until my average last frost date is April 15th. So, you want to go about 6 weeks before that for tomatoes or peppers, 6 to 8 weeks, somewhere right around in there. So that puts me about, I usually say the 1st of May. I don't go with April 15th because we do typically, I mean, that's the average, and sometimes we get frost after that. So I don't put my tomatoes in the ground usually until first week or two of May. So I go back 6 to 8 weeks from there, and that's when I start my tomatoes and peppers, and that's most of what I start indoors. A lot of the other stuff just starts straight in the garden when it's ready. All right, but hey, congratulations on your greenhouse. I am jealous. Wish I had one. I do have well, it's not mine, it's my wife's, but I have a greenhouse in a box over there. It's just a pop-up greenhouse. We're going to see how well it does. I don't know, here in a month or something like that, we'll set it up. All right, Cristo, I don't know if I got your name right, says, thank you. You should try incubating store-bought eggs. That's how I got my quail. Well, that's a good point, but I don't really have anywhere that sells quail eggs in the stores around here. But hey, I should try that at some point. Francine says, we had 50 plus degrees. Yeah, I'm jealous of that too. It was, see, I think the high today was 30 degrees, and tonight it's supposed to be down to 8 degrees. It's been pretty cold the past couple of days. We got Made by Mummy Homestead from Down Under. I assume that means Australia. Welcome to the channel. I've always wanted to visit Australia. Maybe someday I'll make it there. Who knows? Rhonda says, awesome gator green. Hope I can end up with that kind of hatch rate one day soon. Did I miss a comment from Gator Green? Talking about the quail being born. Yeah, don't worry about it. Rhonda, you probably will. Experience will pay off. You will get better and better as it goes. Bobby is here from South Central Pennsylvania. Yeah, Walt, talking about your southern Southern California weather. Low 70s today. High 30s tonight. Yeah, I don't even want to hear about it. It'll be probably months before we see 70 degrees here again. Julian says, how old can I butcher my quail? However old you want to. Quail don't really get tough like a lot of animals do. I mean, they're kind of always a little bit tough because there's not much fat on them. They're pretty lean. But they don't get like tougher as they get older. It's not really a big deal to butcher older quail versus younger quail or any of those kinds of things. I don't do it before they grow out to, the optimum size for me is at about 8 weeks, 8 to 12 weeks, somewhere right around in there. At that point, the rate that they grow out from there versus the amount of food that they eat is just, it doesn't pay off as much. They grow super fast up to about 8 to 12 weeks old, and then they pretty much are close to their adult, their full size that they're ever going to get, and growing from there is just slow. So it doesn't even it just doesn't work out that well. I mean, if you're looking at just the optimum time to butcher. Hopefully that makes sense. Oh, I feel like I got to sneeze, but I think I'm okay. We'll see. Jim's In Town Gardening, hello to you. Glad you made it. Hillbilly Blog says, whoa, I missed. Okay, there we go. Hillbilly Blog says, do you ever grow out your breeders for rabbits? And which do you get more meat per year from, rabbit or quail? Well, let's see. I don't really ever breed out or grow out my rabbits and make them future breeders because I do have, let's see, what was I going to say? Oh, I do have usually I can find good rabbits around here. And it's not like most of my rabbits, like the doe I've got right now, she's not the best breeder ever. I mean, it's not like her bloodlines are so great that I want to keep her babies and grow them out and, pass those genes on. The babies are growing out kind of slow. So it's just not something I worry about too much. I just don't do it. It's not that I'm against doing it. It's just usually I can find better bloodlines for breeders, and I can just buy a rabbit as opposed to having to grow one out for 8, 9 months before, 7, 8 months before I can breed them. And then you go on to say, Hillbilly Blog again says, I learned most about my meat rabbits from you. Well, thank you so much. I'm glad that you find the videos helpful. Christian says, can I use pine shavings as mulch? You can use pine shavings as mulch for sure. What you may worry about with shavings, like if it's like sawdust shavings, is that stuff kind of turns to almost like concrete. So it won't let the water go through. And so you may not want to use that. It'd be great for weed prevention in like your walkways and stuff, but you may not want to use that on the actual garden beds. It may be just a little too compact. But yeah, it would work. All right, Robert Klein says, I had good luck with eggs from eBay. James Marie Farms was a seller. Good hatch rate and bigger birds than I got local. Yeah, James Marie Farms is fantastic bloodlines. I didn't realize he was selling any on eBay. I was probably somebody selling his bloodlines. Kansas City Quail Farms, who I always recommend, their bloodlines are James Murray Farms bloodlines, and that's where my birds came from. So yeah, they're fantastic. It's you can't beat that. They're very good birds. All right, Made by Mummy Homestead says, any reason why my white quail might be laying soft eggs? She also laid a pure white one on the other day. P.S. It's midsummer here. Well, it's actually pretty common for birds to lay soft eggs, especially when they first start laying. You're going to get some weird eggs. You're going to get some with poor shells. You're going to get little tiny egg. You're going to get great big double yolk egg. You're going to get just some oddball eggs. The all white eggs, that's not uncommon at all. That just happens from time to time. People make jokes that they ran out of toner and those kinds of things, but it's just a normal thing. It's nothing to worry about. Now, if they've been laying consistently for a long time and then you start getting a lot of soft eggs from them, then it could be a calcium issue where they just don't have enough calcium. And look at your feed. They really need, the feed should say what percent calcium it is. Really needs to be like 1.5, probably closer to 2 to 2.5% calcium. They don't really need any more than that, but much less than that. And it could mean that you may have to add some calcium or something like that. And just do that like on the side. Don't mix it in with their food. Get like crushed oyster shell or something like that. Give it on the side, and then they can get a free choice however much they need. They'll self-regulate that. So hopefully that answers that for you. All right. Stephen Phillips says, do you prefer a coop or hutch for your quail? I'm not sure if I really know the difference exactly. I think it's just depends on what you call it, honestly. But if you mean like a hutch that they stay in all the time, or a coop where like they can get out on the ground and then get back into the coop, yeah, I've never tried that, so I don't know how much they would use that. They are ground-dwelling birds, so they tend to stay on the ground and not really get up into higher places that much. But I keep mine in a hutch. It's easier for me. It's just it's just the way I do it. I'm not sure I could tell you that it's that much better than keeping them in a coop if that's what you're talking about, or if what I described as a coop is what you're talking about. But try it out and see how well it works. I like having them in a hutch. It's just easier for me to find the eggs. It's easier for me to get into. It's all right here. I don't have to bend over. All that works out pretty well for me. All right, Denver says, got 5 baby rabbits last night. My other doe had a false pregnancy. I'm sorry to hear that, but congratulations on your new babies. All right, Christian says, Chris, you should try growing sugar cane or sugar beets. I'm not sure if I could grow sugar cane here. I think it requires a longer growing season, and I don't think it'd make it through our winters, but sugar beets probably would. I just don't know that I'd use them, so thanks for the suggestion. I just don't know that it makes sense for me to do. All right, Exotic Keeper says, just got my first quail eggs from Naomi from Kansas City Quail Farm in almost 1 week into incubation, and super, having a hard time talking, and super ecstatic, deaf learned using my reptile incubator was not the way to go. Okay, you learned that using your reptile incubator was not the way to go. You got your first eggs from Naomi at Kansas City Quail. You were 1 week into incubation and super excited about it. Okay. Got it. Good grief, I had a hard time with that for some reason. Well, hey, congratulations on your new eggs. Hopefully your hatch goes really, really well. And hey, good thing you learned the lesson about the reptile incubator, but I'm sorry that didn't work out very well for you. All right, Chloe says, what's the best diet for him? He runs around all day, and I have him on the best food, and he only gets treats 2 times a week. Okay, let's see. I got to look back up and see what we're talking about again. I remember answering your question a minute ago, but I don't remember if it was about trying to breed your rabbits. Okay, we're talking about putting your rabbit on a diet. Well, he may not be overweight. Who knows? It may be if you're not getting successful fall-offs, though, and you do need to put him, and the doe is lifting for him, you're sure that's happening, then, you may have to put him on a diet. But, again, what I would do, just feed him pellets. Pellets is a good diet for your rabbit. And the best food is fine. Just give him only as much as he'll eat in 24 hours. So make sure that there's no food left in the feeder the next morning when you go out to feed. If you put feed in there and he just dives right in and just scarfs it down real quick, well, then you need to add a little bit more feed. But try to level that out where it's just about as much as he'll clean up in 24 hours. Hopefully that makes sense. All right. Trish says, one of my does is due no later than today. I was beginning to wonder if she was pregnant. Went to check her this evening, and she is finally pulling fur. Hope to have little ones by morning. I bet you will. Congratulations. I would be surprised if you don't have little ones already. Mine usually don't pull fur until like right after they have the babies. But so good luck and congratulations. All right, Penny Nichols says, I'm about 2 hours from you. Yeah, we'll be up potting. Okay, you're talking about starting the seeds in the greenhouse. Well, you know, there's nothing wrong with that if you want to do that. To me, it's just finding, because, you know, if you're only going to grow a couple of tomato plants, that's no big deal. But I'm usually growing, you know, a dozen or something like that. So finding that many pots is the problem I usually have. And then finding the room for it, because I don't have a greenhouse. So got to have lights on them and all those kinds of things. But yeah, if I had a nice greenhouse and plenty of, you know, pots and plenty of, you know, potting mix and all that, then heck yeah, why not? All right, Rhonda says, I have no clue what kind of quail I got as I bought them, but I ended up with an all white one, yellow right now, and an all black one. I believe is what you have, and the other is black and white. Yeah, it's pretty common to get a mix of quail. There's nothing wrong with that. I do like the jumbo pharaohs. Those are my favorite. They just tend to be, they're a good sized bird. They lay eggs really regularly. It's easy to look at them and tell which one's male and female, but you know, there's nothing wrong with having the mixed colors either. All right, Christopher Stone says, hey Chris, have you ever done a video on how to set up a good process for meat birds beginning to end and repeat, focused on lessons learned, etc., looking to process one hatch after another? No, I don't think I have done a video on that necessarily. I've done a video on how to butcher quail, but it got marked as adult content, so you have to be 18 or older to watch it. And well, let's see. Excuse me, very dry tonight. But as far as like a process beginning to end, I mean, that's what I do. You know, one bird at a time, skin them. I don't pluck them. I don't know that there's really much of a process to it. Put them all in a pet carrier. I pull one bird out. I handle it. When it's done, I grab another bird. I handle it. You know, so on down the line. I usually do it at the kitchen sink. If it's nice outside, I'll do it right outside. Sit down on the deck and, you know, over a bucket or some, you know, trash can kind of thing, and a bowl of water next to me, and just, you know, go that way. But no, I haven't done videos on that necessarily. All right, Ronnie says, we had the auto water on the quail pen bust the pipe that was at the end where we had a valve for draining, and cleaning the system broke off the pipe. Repairs done today. So is it, I mean, you broke the pipe because is it cold where you live maybe, and they froze and broke? I have to take down my automatic watering systems in the winter because they will freeze and the pieces will break if you don't. So that may be the problem with that, but hey, things break. You know, it's just part of life, and yeah, you have to do repairs on them every once in a while. Usually it's not too tough though, so hopefully that goes well. Boy, we got a lot of comments coming in, guys. I'm doing my best to keep up with it. We got almost 60 people in here tonight, so if I don't get your comment answered, we're almost 30 minutes in already. I apologize, but I'm doing my best. All right, Rhonda says, I got 2 feet of snow here in Ohio. Yeah, they threatened snow. We didn't really get any here. Chastity says, can you raise Bobwhite in quail pens like you have? Yes, you can. Most places you're going to need a permit in order to raise Bobwhite quail because they are a native species. And I did a video on that a while back. You know, I'm not an expert on Bobwhite quail necessarily, but sometimes it is like during the breeding season. It's really best to kind of keep them in pairs because they do tend to be very aggressive with each other. But you can raise them in pens like what I have right there. Plenty of people do it, so you can do it. All right, Walt says, Trader Joe quail eggs are sometimes fertile. Interesting, we don't have a Trader Joe here, so. Chad Okerstorm, there we go, hello to you. Dan's Boys Homestead, 4 feet of snow here in northern Ontario, Canada. Yeah, that's another place I think I would move. That's 4 feet of snow on a regular basis, too much. I like a good snow every once in a while, but that's one of the things I like about living in Southwest Missouri is, you know, we'll get a good snow usually a couple of times a season. Although last season was mild, and so far this winter's been mild. But we'll get a good, you know, 4, 5, 6 inch snow, something like that. And then it's gone in like, you know, 3, 4 days. And then we don't have to deal with it again for a while. So it's fun that way. It's fun to have a little bit of snow every once in a while, but it's, you know, after a bit, it gets old pretty quick. All right, Cristo, I don't remember how I said it the first time. Hopefully that was it. Says I said the name right the first time. Yeah, Walt's making fun of me for the weather comment. Oh my gosh, Chad Okerstorm is sitting at -25 at the moment in Minnesota. Too cold. Ronnie Britton says, we modeled our quail hutch after Aloha Quail on YouTube. Aloha Quail, I think, is in here right now. There are 4 levels and slanted wire bottoms and pins underneath for waste collection. We did make a few mods from his design. He's got some great designs. I've seen lots of his videos, and he's got some great feeders too that I may steal an idea from and make at some point. All right. The chick guy says, hey, Chris, there we go. Hey, Chris, I was, if you recommend having mixed breed rabbit babies. I was wondering, I think is what you're saying, if I recommend having mixed breed rabbit babies. I wanted to get some rabbits to breed and sell babies at a local auction. Also, how much protection do rabbits need from predators? Okay, wow, lots of things in there. Okay, I think mixed breed babies are good in a lot of ways if you're raising them for meat, because there is such a thing as hybrid vigor. They do tend to be, when you have not mixed breeds, but 2 purebred rabbits, but of different breeds, and you breed them together, then you get a hybrid. And they tend to be very strong, very healthy, just very resilient. So it's great for a meat rabbit if you're planning on eating it. But if you want to sell the rabbits at an auction, I would really recommend getting pedigree rabbits and the same breed and breed them together so you have pedigree babies. Those are what people are more likely going to buy at an auction or something like that. That's probably a better investment. As far as how much protection the rabbits need from predators, it depends on your predator pressure and what kind of predators you have around there. They need to be in a place where they're not going to get eaten. So however that is, different predators require different amounts of protection. I've never had a problem. We have like, I don't have a big predator problem here, but we have raccoon, we have possum. They're usually not a problem with your rabbits. We have, let's see, what else do we have here? Some fox. They've never gotten into my rabbit hutches. They're up off the ground a little ways, and I think that's kind of prevented them from getting into them. But yeah, if you got them on the ground, you're going to have to do something to keep predators from, and the bunnies themselves from digging out, predators from digging in. And again, it depends a lot on what your predator pressure is around there and what kind of predators you have. All right, Living Tradition says, hey, Chris, good to catch a live stream on a night where our internet is working good. Well, hey, Living Traditions is here. Good to see you guys. Thanks for joining. And, don't say too much, because quite often, I run into problems with my internet or my connection somehow. The video freezes up. We get, it ends up getting kicked out. We have to start all over again. But good to see you guys. Thanks for joining. And if you guys haven't watched Living Traditions Homestead, I'm sure most of you in here know who that is, then go check out their channel. They have some great videos. They are actual homesteaders, not like me, where I just have some rabbits and some quail and some gardening. They make a living off of homesteading. That's what they do full time. So it's interesting to see, their goats. They've got a lot more animals, do a lot more things than I do. So go check them out. They're some great videos. And they're not too far from me, just 65, 70 miles. I was in Springfield today. Someday, whenever I make it up there, we'll have to work it out and meet up and make sure the quail are laying. We can do some trading or something. All right, Jimmy AC says, 63 guests, awesome. You're becoming famous. I don't know if I'd call that famous, but yeah, that's probably one of the biggest live streams we've had. So I'm glad everybody is here. Lots of people saying hi to Living Traditions. Backyard Survivalist says, love Living Traditions Homestead, beautiful family. Indeed, a beautiful family, I agree. Backyard Survivalist says, should I get quail eggs from 2 different suppliers, or is it okay to breed quail from the same hatch? Is there any problem from inbreeding over time? Eventually over time, you may run into some problems with inbreeding, but it's not really a big concern. I try to bring in some new blood every couple of years just to avoid it, but I've never really run into a problem with it. So I don't think I'd worry about it too much. All right, Christo says, how old do quail start laying eggs? Usually by about 8 weeks old, depending on if your conditions are right, you've got enough light and all those kinds of things. Usually about 8 weeks old, they'll start laying. All right, Gator Green says, hey, Chris, one more question, please. I'm in North Carolina. Can Kansas City Quail Farms send me eggs? That's probably a question for Kansas City Quail Farms. But, yeah, I would say yes, they can. They ship out eggs. They ship them all over the place. I don't see any reason why they couldn't ship to North Carolina. All right, Ronnie says, local has always worked best for me. I ordered some online once, and well over half were cracked on the box and was just eggs filled with paper. Oh boy, that does sound terrible. That's, You know, it's one of the reasons I always say deal with a local or with a reputable breeder. Kansas City Quail Farms. Let's see. I've got the box that they shipped eggs to me, and this has been a couple of years, but I saved it. I don't think I have it anywhere handy, but they do a good job. They have little foam cartons in there to put the eggs in. I got, was it 100 eggs or something like that, and not one of them was cracked. They all came just perfect. It was great. Excuse me. Dust in the air, and I'm still getting over a little bit of a cold. All right, Walt says different suppliers is not necessary if the seller has more than a few birds. Yeah, good point there too, Walt. Depends on your seller too. If they have more than just a few birds, then you know, you're not going to have to run into problems with inbreeding anytime soon, probably. All right, Denver Lane says, here's a secret: look for the stuff that they wrap lumber with to use as mulch. It is so often black on one side and woven material and free. Compared to weed mat, it works well. Dumpster dive a job site. Interesting. I've never thought of using that. Isn't that plastic though, pretty much? Which is okay. You know, I just don't want it staying there deteriorating in the ground over time, but that might work out pretty well. All right, Crystal says, can quail hatch out their own eggs? Yes, quail can, but it's unlikely that they will. Coturnix quail especially very seldom, if ever, go broody. When they do, they don't usually have really great success rate with it. They tend to kind of give up on the eggs before they hatch, or they just don't do a great job. It does happen from time to time. It's just rare. I wouldn't count on it. All right, Grizzlard, I think is what it is. Chris, love your channel. Well, thank you so much. Deportation Nathan says, can I use my own pee-pee poo-poo for fertilizer? Oh, you mean like human? No, I wouldn't do that. I mean, it depends on what you're fertilizing, but no, I don't think that's a good idea. You don't really want to use like dog or cat or any kind of predator, and I think we kind of fall into that category as well. There's just certain diseases and things like that that you can get from them, so I don't think I would do that. That sounds terrible. All right. Whoa, boy, we got a lot of comments in here. I can't keep up with them all. RSL82568 says, this is Scott. When is the best time to dispatch rabbits? I'm hearing different ages, 8, 12, 16, even 6 months. Is it better by weight? Yeah, I like to go by weight, but I really don't like to go over like 12 weeks. I want to give them before they hit sexual maturity. That does change the meat a little bit in them, and they also tend to get tougher as they get older. So I like to butcher mine really at no more than 12 weeks. 16 weeks is okay, really, but right around in that time frame. I really like to get them to 8 weeks and butcher at 8 weeks old, because that's just where I get the best feed to meat ratio. But they have to be at least like 5 pounds for me to do that. And lately I haven't been getting some good breeding stock, and my rabbits just aren't getting to 5 pounds by 8 weeks. So I have to wait a little while longer. All right, Off-Road ATV says, hi, Chris. I had a female jumbo Coturnix quail that got brutally picked on by the other females the other day. I had to call her. Do you know why that may have happened? I don't get any males. I don't got any males. Okay, yeah, it's very common with quail. I mean, the females are the same way as the males. When they first go into, you know, the sexual maturity, or whenever you introduce new birds to each other, they just all of a sudden get aggressive for some reason. And sometimes they just do for whatever reason. You know, it's unfortunate. Usually when you have birds together for a long period of time, they kind of work that out. It usually doesn't get as bad, you know, to kill one of the birds, and you know, they'll just calm down, especially if they've been raised together. But it does from time to time. Sometimes they just decide, I don't like that one over there anymore, and they just pick on it, you know, nonstop for whatever reason. And the other ones tend to join in with it. It's just an unfortunate thing, but it happens. All right. Exotic Keeper says, haha, yeah, the reptile incubator was already on hand and didn't want to spend the money for a new one. Just a fun time with the humidity. It's not meant to hold it too much as we use CI containers of media. Okay. So, oh yeah, talking about the reptile. Okay, got it. All right. Fernando says, should I get a round-shaped cage for my male rabbit? I've heard that it is better for the male to get the female. You know, I guess, maybe. I think it just depends on your what you want to do. If you want to get a round cage, go for it. I don't see any problem with that. If you want a square cage, go for it. I don't see any problem with that either. There are times where the female will get in the corner and kind of huddle down, but it's not that big of a deal. I just reach in there and scoot her out of the corner, and it's no big deal. Exotic Keeper says, candling tomorrow, fingers crossed. I think I'm going to do another farm pickup for my eggs after I find out how many I end up hatching. Well, good luck with your hatch. I hope it works out well. Art says, I'm new to your channel. I like what you do with quail. I'm thinking to start as a hobby, but I'm not sure if the quail will be too noisy for my neighbors. Well, I don't have problems with mine, but depends on how picky your neighbors are. Honestly, they don't really sound that much different than just like the songbirds that are out here all the time anyway. So I don't know. I mean, it depends on your neighbors. I don't think it's really that bad. None of my neighbors complained about it. I had my neighbor, I'm right up against the side of his fence. Of course, his house is a little bit from his fence, but not far. And he came out one day, and this was after he'd lived there for a couple of years. He came out one day and out the back and looked. He said, what do you have in those cages? And I told him it was quail. He said, well, I heard them. I just didn't realize you had birds in cages back here. And then eventually I saw the cages and thought, well, he's got to be keeping something back there. He didn't even realize that I had them. So it's not usually a problem. Armed American says the worst problem with quail is that they poop a lot, extreme amounts. Yeah, they do poop a lot. That's true. All right. John says, at what age do quail start laying? John, I think I answered that already. Somebody else asked it, but, ask again if not. But, well, it's an easy answer. Usually about 8 weeks if you got all the other conditions right. All right. Comation, I think it is. I have rabbits, but I took a year off breeding them. Now the females won't breed. What can I do? Oh, most common question we get probably is, my female won't lift for the male. What do I do about it? Biggest thing you can do is just try and try and try and try and try. So usually it's, try in the morning. She won't lift. Give them 15 minutes, whatever. Put her back in her cage. Try again that night. She won't lift. Put her back in her cage. Try again the next morning. Try again the next night. Usually after about 5 attempts, something like that, she'll go ahead and lift for the male. If that doesn't work, you might try adding some light, getting the light up to about 14 hours a day. That can kind of put them in the mood to breed a little bit, so that might help. Also, I've heard people having really good success with putting the rabbit in like a pet carrier, put it in your car, and then just drive around the block a couple of times and bring her back and then throw her in the cage with the male and see if she'll lift for him that way. I have no idea why that'll work, but people swear by it, so there's got to be something to it. So hopefully that helps. Good luck with it. I hope that she will breed for them soon, or lift for them soon, I should say. All right, Armed American says, usually around 7 or 8 weeks, quail will start laying eggs. Yep, got that. A couple people answering that question. Ronnie says, we use solid bottom rabbit feeders and put wire in the feeding area to keep the quail from scratching in the food. It really helped a lot with waste. Yep, absolutely does. I use, I think you guys have seen the feeders that I use probably. It's just like a Tupperware type container with a hole in it. Living Traditions, if they're still in here, they just did a quail feeder they built. Looked pretty nice. May end up having to go with something like that because you can fit a lot more feed in them. And it was basically the same thing, except for it had two big, like, I can't remember, I think they were 4-inch, no, they're probably 2-inch pieces of pipe that came up out of the top of it, and that's where you put the feed in. They had like little holes cut in the bottom of the pipe so it would let enough feed out the birds could eat, but not so much that it would spill out the holes. And that seems to be a really good design for it too. All right, Christine says, I just bought a new Bobwhite quail. I love your channel. Stay up late in Ireland just to watch. Love all your information. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Ireland's another place I've always wanted to visit. That's both sides of my family are Irish, so if you trace our family roots back, we came from Ireland. Of course, I've got a lot of other things in my bloodlines too, but I always wanted to visit Ireland. Yep, Walt's right. People at auctions lie about age or breed purity. They do for sure. Armed American says, never buy birds at auctions. You take a chance of bringing disease home. Good point there, too. Rhonda says, yeah, good question on the chick guy. My neighbor's dogs keep going in my backyard. I've had 2 different dogs in the past week. They're up high enough to point, but I'm still worried that they will get in. They are up high enough to a point, but I'm still worried they'll get in. Yep, that could happen for sure. All right, Walt says hybrid vigor is a real thing. Like with pigs, crossbred is like 20 days faster to market weight than purebreds. Interesting. Robin says, hello, Chris. Got my paperwork printed out for the state to have Bobwhites. It's going to cost $48, I believe. Yep, I think, yeah, it's not too terribly expensive, and it's not too terribly hard to get a permit for them. But I just don't see a reason to do it. I mean, if you're looking for primarily meat and egg production, Coturnix is the way to go. They're just so much more reliable. But if you want Bobwhites, get Bobwhites. Nothing wrong with that. All right. Ronnie says, hey, Gator Green, they ship, but you can try, they ship, but you can try Craigslist. That's where I got mine. Have you tried that? Okay. Brian says, Living Traditions needs to do weekly live streams. It's a lot of work to keep up with a weekly live stream on a regular schedule. They already do videos like 4 or 5 days a week. And I can't imagine trying to keep up with that many videos. But hey, it'd be nice to see them every once in a while live, huh? 20 days less feed cost adds up to 5,000 pigs a year. Yep, good point. The feed cost is lower on those. All right. Where are we at here? A couple of Living Tradition says, Brian, I wish we could, but our satellite internet is too slow. That is one of the disadvantages of living out in the country, and one of the few disadvantages, I think, to living out in the country is not good internet. I mean, who knows? It'll eventually get to you guys. You'll eventually get cable or DSL or something. You know, so just wait 10, 15 years, something like that, and you'll probably have great internet. All right, Richard of Danbury says, we have foxes, bobcats, raccoons, black bears, and wood rats. Oh, boy, that's a lot. Last year, the wood rats invaded the rabbitry quail shed and devastated my quail until the owls noticed them. Then the rats disappeared nearly overnight. Interesting. We're losing Walt. His internet is crapping out on the bus. All right, Zoo Yaj, I don't know. Hi there, do you need permit to raise bobwhite quail? Depends on where you live, but yeah, if you live in the States, in the United States, you probably need a permit for them because they are native birds, and usually that's going to fall under Migratory Bird Act or whatever, and you'll need a permit from your conservation department to raise them. All right. Kyle Clark says 70 days on meat rabbits, between 4 to 4.5 pounds on fryers. If you want roasters, 5 pounds and above. Good advice there. Yep, Walt's got that answer too. Native game birds usually require a permit. Walt says, I don't plastic sheeting is a problem for gardens since it's not on ground that long, considering it takes like 30 years to break down. I think you're saying I don't think plastic sheeting is a problem. No, it's not a terrible problem. A fight is raging on the bus, I'm guessing. Well, maybe you should film that and post it yourself. No, probably not. We don't want to encourage people to do that. All right, so Rhonda says, right, I'm thinking of making the feeder that Living Traditions made. Yeah, it looked like a good feeder. I think it was a great design. All right, Jackie says, I have the exact same quail feeder as Living Tradition. It works great. Chick Guy says, hey, Chris, just followed up on some of my previous question. Just following up on my previous question, I would see. I'm not sure what that means, but oh well. Jimmy AC says, Living Tradition subscribe. Funny thing is, have watched your videos, but didn't click. Hello from say, oh, you subscribe to Living Traditions. Yeah, that's a channel it's one of the few channels that I actually watch most of their videos when they post them. James says, do you sell eggs or quail? I do sell some from time to time, but I'm not really set up to ship. I'm not in the business of producing quail and shipping them out and all those kinds of things. I usually sell live birds, you know, a couple from every hatch to help pay for my feed cost, but I just do it like on Craigslist locally. But I'm not against selling them. I just don't produce at a high enough level to reliably, that's not my business model, if that makes sense. All right, the Chick Guy says, sell mixed breed rabbits because the auction is in a place where they don't care about the breeds of things. I got a pair of ring-necked pheasants for $54. Interesting. All right, John says, what is the largest breed of quail that you know of? Oh, let's see. I don't know, honestly. Sorry, guys, I'm having a little bit of a back ache right here, stretching a little. Largest breed of quail. If you're talking about Coturnix quail, then it's probably like the Jumbo Pharaoh or the Jumbo Meat Maker. They're both about the same, honestly. I think some of the Bobwhites, though, there's a Georgia Giant that gets pretty big. So that may be the largest of the quail out there. Ultimate Outdoor says, have you ever shipped birds, and what do you think the best way is? I have never shipped birds myself. They really don't. I mean, they sell boxes that you can ship birds in, but I don't think it's a good idea to ship quail. They typically don't do well with being shipped. It kind of stunts their growth, and just I don't think it's a great idea. You're better off if you have to ship eggs, but you know, who knows. All right, Rhonda Snare says, do you need a permit for pheasants, or does it just depend on where you live? It probably depends a little bit on where you live. If pheasants are native in your area, you definitely need a permit for it, but I don't know all the details to that. I'd have to look up and what kind of pheasants and all those kinds of things. All right, Rhonda also says, I think it might be the weather for a backache. My back has been killing me. Oh, yeah, as well. Can't wait for spring. No, mine's not the weather. I was a busy day. I was sitting at the computer typing all day, and it's just stiff from that. All right, Terry says, do you think the black soldier fly would be too big for quail? Oh, the black soldier fly larva? No, you know, I get black soldier fly larva under my quail hutches every summer, and I usually harvest a few of them and feed them to the quail. They will eat them. It takes them a little while. They peck at them a lot before they eat them, but yeah, they'll eat them. It works out pretty well. It's better to have them underneath the hutches because they do a fantastic job of taking care of the droppings. I mean, they clean it out. All right, I talked for just about 50 minutes, almost nonstop, and the comments have actually started slowing down a little bit. So if I didn't get your comment answered, go ahead and, you know, leave it again, and yeah, well, I'll do my best. So Denver says, do your worms eat quail manure? Yeah, the black soldier fly larvae, they do eat the quail manure. They go through it. I mean, they really do a good job of keeping it in check. And they'll also just devour, like if you have a bird that dies for whatever reason, you throw it down there, it's like 2 days and it's gone. I mean, that's crazy. Another good benefit of that is when they're in the manure pile, I don't have any problems with flies or any of that kind of stuff. It's like they keep everything else out. So it's pretty nice. I love having them. All right, we just slowed down. Hopefully we're still going here. Nobody's leaving any comments, and you know, I don't plan any topics to cover, so I don't really have anything to talk about. Tell you what, guys, I may wrap this up just a few minutes early tonight since the comments have died down a little bit. 62 people in here. Thank you all for joining tonight. I appreciate that. Oh, Steve Young just got here. Oh, I should give you an update on the wife, right? Okay. Yeah, my wife's actually doing pretty well right now. What was I saying about that? Okay, she's doing pretty well right now. We're meeting with the oncologist on Tuesday, and that's when we'll get the final word as to whether any kind of chemotherapy is going to be needed or not. We did meet with the radiologist. He was part of the tumor board that they met with, and he said he'd be very surprised if chemotherapy was needed. So that's kind of where we're at right now. She's going to need some radiation. 15 treatments is kind of the plan, but we don't know if there's going to be anything else needed from that. She's feeling pretty good. Went back to work last week and doing pretty well. All right. Jim's in town gardening. Had to laugh at your cage cleaning video. Yeah, laugh at me because it's always a chore whenever I let those things build up. All right, Denver says, I don't have black soldier fly here. What about worms? Well, it depends on what kind of worms you get. I don't know that they would, even composting worms, I don't think would live on straight manure, and I don't know that they do a great job with it, but they'll help for sure. Yeah, Armed American says, that was a heck of a mess it made with all that rabbit poo the other day. Yeah, it was a pretty big mess for me too. Art says, thank you. Yo, you're welcome. Blessed evening to you too, Robin. All right, Ronnie wants to know if I'm going to do more videos on planting seeds or micros this spring. I'll probably do some videos on that, sure. All right, Ultimate Outdoor Boy says, is there anything you can do to improve the hatch rate of eggs that were shipped in the cold? Well, I mean, if they got so cold that it really affected the hatch rate, not really. But the biggest thing I would say is when you get them, don't just stick them right in the incubator. Set them out on the counter next to your incubator or whatever. Let them sit for about 24 hours to kind of settle down and acclimate to the temperature, and that'll help with that. Jimmy AC saw a couple of videos on putting classic music on chickens to increase egg production. I don't know if I buy that or not, but who knows? Try it out and see. Yep, the Armed Americans pretty much got it right. Leave your lights on 20 hours on, 4 hours off, and you'll get quail eggs year round. You'll also have roosters crowing all night long, all year long, but that's not necessarily a problem. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap this up. I got about 5 minutes left. I got to get some work stuff done. It was a busy day today, and I didn't get everything done at work, so I need to go get started on that, get that knocked out so I can spend some time with the family. Good to see everybody. Thank you so much for joining. 62 people in here. I think that's a record for a live broadcast. As always, God bless each and every one of you. We will see you guys next week, and thanks so much again.